Cast your mind back, if you can, to 1987. It was a year of domination for the Honda-powered Williams FW11B, and one where the championship lead had changed hands several times. Coming up to the Japanese Grand Prix, two-time world champion Nelson Piquet had 3 wins under his belt, whereas his younger teammate Nigel Mansell was going for his first world championship and had secured 6 victories. However, due to Piquet's consistency, he was leading Nigel by 12 points. With just 2 rounds to go, Nigel needed to win with Piquet out of the points at Suzuka to keep his championship hopes alive, and he showed this by lighting up the timing boards in practice, calling on all of his brummy determination as he went quicker and quicker in an attempt to get the upper hand on his fierce rival. That was until this happened. Nigel was injured and had to miss the end of the season, handing Piquet the World Championship before the race had even begun. With Piquet already confirmed as having won his 3rd World Drivers' Championship, the race went ahead anyway, with Gerhard Berger taking a phenomenal pole position, 0.6 of a second ahead of reigning world champion Alain Prost, and over a second ahead of that year's world champion Nelson Piquet. At the very back of the grid was the AGS of Roberto Moreno, who originally failed to qualify but was allowed to start due to Mansell's withdrawal. This will be Roberto's first Grand Prix start, as he was brought in to replace Pascal Faber in AGS's single car for the last 2 Grand Prix. When the race got underway, there was a Mark Webber-style start from Michele Alboreto, who was left stranded in the middle of the grid. Also look in the background as we get our first addition to the crunch count, with Philippe Alliot going spearing into the wall after tangling with another car. You put your hands in the air like you just don't care. After all of that, the other Ferrari of Gerhard Berger continued to lead, followed by Prost, Boutsen and Senna. Just look at these ridiculous sparks though. The last time I had this much fire flying out of my rear end was... well, let's not speak about that time right now, eh? The first of the leaders to encounter trouble was Alain Prost, who had been running second but had to limp back to the pits with a deflated tyre flatter than a clafoutis. In other news, my search history now contains the phrase flat French things. In other news, I have to give credit to Lotus for somehow managing to find a camera dirtier than Nakajima's driving. Minardi's Moteri Moderni engine was known for being not the most reliable of things, and this time Adrian Campos made it just 2 laps before it went poof. Thierry Boutsen inherited second after Prost's puncture, but quickly began to drop down the order, first losing out to future world champion Ayrton Senna, then to that year's world champion Nelson Piquet, and then he was also passed by Stefan Johansson in the McLaren. There was then a strange addition to the crunch count when Christian Danner blew an engine, locked the rear axle and spun into the barriers on the straight, and then they just kind of left the car there for the rest of the race? What? I mean, I know this was standard procedure for the 80s, but still, that car is on the track. Did they not care about safety at all back in those days? Gosh. And that's our 3rd addition to the crunch count, with Ivan Capelli spinning his march at 130R and nosing into the wall off camera. Another retirement was Teo Fabi from 6th place, who actually retired from most of the Grand Prix that year due to the Benetton being especially unreliable. Okay, I know engine failures must be scary for you, but you don't have to wet yourself, car. Come on, you're an adult now. Meanwhile, Gerhard Berger was still a long way out in front, and by the time he made his only pit stop, he was already almost 10 seconds ahead of Senna and Piquet, who both pitted a lap later. Now there's a comment site, Andrea de Cesaris retiring from a race. This is of course the first time that's been seen on this show, but I can almost guarantee that it won't be the last. The same could be said of course for Martin Brundle, who was only classified in 3 of the 16 races in 1987, excluding of course this one. Stefan Johansson had jumped both Senna and Piquet in the pits, but the Brazilians continued to battle. Just look at this next shot with Piquet hanging the tail out around the hairpin. That is pure 80s racing. Alain Prost was on a recovery drive catching up to both of them, however he was still a lap down after his puncture, as shown by how easily Piquet just let him through. He then caught up to the back of Senna, and it's ironic to think that in less than a year's time, these two will become ferocious rivals of the like that the sport had never seen before. Meanwhile, Roberto Moreno had done a good job to make it this far through his first Grand Prix start, although he retired with an electrical issue. A fun fact about the AGS team he drives for is that there's only one Grand Prix in history where two AGS cars started, with that being the 1990 Spanish Grand Prix. Sadly, Nelson Piquet was not able to finish his World Championship winning Grand Prix. You can see the smoke there billowing from the back of the Honda engine as Piquet pulls in to retire, having become the 5th driver in F1 history to win 3 championships. Imagine how dramatic this would have been if Mansell had started. He could have kept the championship alive to the last round. Now here's something you don't see anymore, drivers running out of fuel. Alex Cathy, René Arnoux and Eddie Cheever all failed to make the flag just because they didn't have enough fuel in their tank. The drivers must have felt emptier than their cars, having to sit on the sidelines just because of a slight miscalculation from their teams. Here's Eddie Cheever right before he ran out of fuel, passing Satoru Nakajima for 6th place, who, ironically, was fuel saving at the time. Wah, the point is mine. What? Oh no. At the end of all of that, Gerhard Berger took just his 2nd Grand Prix victory by a magnificent 17.4 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, who just pipped Stefan Johansson to the line for 2nd place in a battle that was sadly off-screen for most of the time. Satoru Nakajima took a point on home soil, and the Jim Clark Trophy for naturally aspirated engines was taken by Jonathan Palmer's Tyrrell, which finished 8th overall. I rated the Grand Prix a 9 out of 10 overall for its historical significance, its unpredictability through attrition, and its fighting for even podium places right up until the end. It would have been a 10 out of 10 had that battle for 2nd been the battle for the win. I'll give the Driver of the Day award for Best Driver to Gerhard Berger, because duh. He took pole position by 0.6 of a second, commanded the entire race, and then won it by 17 seconds. That's really quite something, especially since the Ferrari was really not that quick that year. I'll give the Inouye Trophy for Worst Driver to Philippe Strife, the driver at the white car there, who was over a second a lap slower than his teammate Palmer and finished 2 laps down in a car that was definitely capable of better. Drive safe guys, and I'll see you next time.